Hey, what's going on, guys? Raptor King back here. Just doing some more, just some random regular stories tonight. Not a whole lot. I'm gonna do it first. Last 3-minute creepy web animated horror story. So I'm gonna do some more. I don't know which ones. I'm just gonna I might continue on some of these more 16 animated horror stories and stuff. So I might do that one next. All right, guys, let's get to this. Let's roll.
A few years ago, while I was in high school, the deep web was becoming very popular. I never really got into it until my friend told me about it because he was into that weird stuff. One day after school, I had nothing to do, so I went onto the browser and toured.
Hold on, guys. Sorry. I've already seen that one. Right there.
Why are you smiling? Because I'm freaking rich, baby. I started as a poor
You're an
farmer,
idiot. Shut up.
and now
it was wintertime, and Christmas was approaching.
Animated horror stories, guys. I mean, we're not gonna do all 16, but I'll do some.
I was 25 years old, and I was going to meet up with some of my friends who lived on the other side of the city. It was a 4-hour drive from my place, so I decided to take my own car instead of a local cab. It was my first time going alone on such a long drive, and I felt nervous, but excited. At midday, I packed my bags, threw them in the trunk, and went off to meet my friends. It was a cold day, but the roads were clear. I didn't see much traffic as it was the holidays, and people would rather spend time with their families and friends indoors and stay off the roads. Now, I'm not the type of person to go straight to my friend's house. I like to take my time. I'm a social media freak, and I enjoy posting pictures pretty much all the time. So I found the journey an excellent excuse to post some extra pictures. The road I was taking had beautiful scenery, and the place where my friends lived was even more magical. I stopped a lot during my ride to take pictures. I was having a great time by myself. Well, that was until the weather suddenly changed. It was around 6 p.m., and I was still driving. I still had a long way ahead of me. And that's when it started to snow. Not just a dusting of snow. It was thick and heavy.
Oh, shit.
After 15 minutes or so, the roads were already covered with a few feet of snow. I felt anxious, since it was getting dark and I wasn't even halfway through the drive. My car slowed down, and I had to force it to run on the empty roads. The heavy snow didn't stop. I decided that I would stop at the closest gas station I could find, but unfortunately, I couldn't find one for a while. An hour later, I finally saw some lights shining from the distance.
Damn, that snow's really coming down.
It was
Holy
a gas
shit.
station. I pressed the accelerator.
Sorry, guys, I haven't eaten
rushed to the
dinner yet, so
station,
please ignore
parked
me
my car,
eating.
and went inside quickly. Just as I entered, a strong snowstorm started. The gas station had a little shop tucked away with some chairs to sit on. The guy at the counter was an ordinary fellow. He didn't really talk much. He only asked me where I was going in such harsh weather. After that, I bought some chips and drinks and sat down in the furthest chair from him. It was night now. I sat, munched on my food, and scrolled through an Instagram. Then, suddenly, the shop's door opened. I looked up, and a very weird-looking man entered. He had long, greasy hair, was wearing a long coat, and had a very grim expression. I saw him buy some cigarettes, and he sat down a few chairs away from me.
Fucking creepy.
He didn't look at me at all. At first, I ignored him, but then he started smoking. Since the shop was small and the smoke filled the air quickly, the shopkeeper told him to stop, but he didn't listen. He couldn't ask him to leave because of the storm, so he didn't say anything else. I, on the other hand, hated cigarettes. The weird guy was looking down, breathing very heavily as he smoked. It was as if he was breathing in my ears. So when he took out his 5th cigarette, I lost my temper and angrily told him to stop. He looked at me for a couple of minutes. His big eyes were red with anger. But then he smiled and stopped smoking. His smile was unnerving. I sat down again and distracted myself on my phone. Shortly afterwards, my friend called me, asking why I hadn't reached their place yet. I told him the whole story, and he said the storm would soon be over, and I shouldn't worry. When I hung up, I noticed the weird guy staring at my phone with deep interest. I was afraid
Ew.
that he was thinking of stealing it. But to my
That
relief,
is
after some
nasty.
time, he got up to leave. At the door, he stopped, looked back, and screamed loudly before running away, scaring the crap out of me and the shopkeeper.
That's nasty.
He didn't return after that. At 10:30 p.m., the storm ended, and I immediately left after thanking the shopkeeper. I went into my car, started it, and drove off. For some time, I drove in silence, but then I heard a noise. It sounded like heavy breathing. My heart rate shot up and my hands got all sweaty as the breathing sounded
that is so
familiar
fucking creepy.
and so close.
Oh, hell no.
I looked through my rearview mirror and screamed. The weird guy from the
Oh
shop
my
was
fucking
sitting in my
gosh.
back seat, smiling at me.
Strap
I
in,
pressed
hit a
the
tree.
brakes very hard, got out of the car and started running. I felt him running after me too, yelling at the top of his lungs. The road was empty, and I felt hopeless as I knew he was faster than me. I only looked back once to see him running like an unnatural being and holding a knife in his hand. I increased my pace, still wondering how on earth he got inside my car. I might have forgotten to lock the door when I first left to go to the gas station. But now, it was too late for regret. My life was at risk because some psychopath was after me. Then I saw some headlights at a distance. I started waving my hands like a maniac, screaming for them to stop. They did, and it turned out to be my friend. He had come to pick me up as he was worried since I was pretty late
Oh,
and thought
nice.
something
Very
went
nice.
wrong.
That's awesome.
I looked back, and I saw that guy was gone. I got inside my friend's car and told him everything. He called the cops, and they arrived shortly after. We all went to my car first and noticed some marks made by a knife in the back seat. The cops couldn't find the guy anywhere. After some investigation, they let us leave. I drove my car, and my friend drove his car back to his place. The cops never found the guy,
Damn.
and to this day, I still wonder what would have happened if my friend didn't turn up that night.
That's fucking creepy. No way.
So you're interested?
Alright, guys, watch this next one. I gotta use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
I was 12 years old when this happened. My grandmother just got home from the hospital because she had a stroke. She couldn't go up to the second floor of our house, in which her room was located. So my uncle, my little brother, and I decided that we were going to sleep in her room for a while. Before this day happened, my aunt bought a new air conditioner, so the old one would be removed. And of course, there was a hole in the wall for the air conditioner. I covered the hole with some kind of small box before working on the wall, so the air wouldn't come in. Anyway, back to the situation. My uncle and I were playing a mobile game at 3 a.m. when this happened. We played for about an hour or so until my little brother had fallen asleep. While I was paying attention, I suddenly heard a small scratching sound coming from the hole on the wall where I covered it with a box. Its sound was like someone trying to remove it with something. However, I just ignored it at first, because I thought it might be a cat trying to remove the cover. After 5 minutes, my uncle heard the sound, and he whispered in my ear saying, "Did you hear that sound?" I said, "Yeah, I heard it too, but maybe it's just a cat. Forget about it." After that, we had forgotten about the sound, and we just played again, until that moment. All of a sudden, my uncle quickly put down his cell phone and started to search with the flashlight. "What's wrong?" I asked him, but he pointed his finger on his mouth and pointed it to the window. It was quiet outside. "That's weird. I heard someone's footsteps." He talked to me sitting back next to me. I tried to say that it's nothing,
Okay, guys, sorry.
but this time I heard those footsteps. Someone was outside walking around with a creaking sound. So we eventually decided to look for it, opening the
The reason I don't pause it is because I know you guys don't want to sit there and see nothing for like 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. So that's why I just keep the video going.
box cover. But before we could get closer, my little brother began to scream. We were shocked by that, but then We just laughed, thinking our reaction was silly. I talked to my little brother and asked him what happened. He said that he had a nightmare. We laughed again, much bigger this time. Bump! We abruptly froze when we heard loud footsteps from a roof away from us.
Fuck that.
My heart dropped.
So would
What
mine.
was it? My uncle said with an anxious
Damn,
voice.
that guy's kind of huge.
We then stayed away from the wall and started panicking. I started to think that it might be a thief who was trying to enter our house. What if he would try to kill us? How are we going to stop him? What should I do? However, despite all my worries, nothing happened after that. There were no footsteps anymore, but my uncle and I had to stay up until the next morning, shivering together. A few days later, my grandpa covered the wall with cement. And that day, we were watching the local news, and we heard that one of our neighbors, who lived right next to us, had been murdered. They also reported that the suspect has not been found, so the cops were struggling to arrest him.
Fuck
We
that.
just couldn't believe the news.
That is
We just
creepy.
watched the news with our mouth open. That moment became the worst nightmare of my whole life. What if I dared to try to remove that small box to see outside on that day?
Probably get stabbed in the eye.
For this story, my name will be Charlie. Years ago, my first year of college, I lived in a dorm. But if only I knew what was going to happen. I earned a scholarship to college for baseball, and all the players lived in one dorm. Being that I was a freshman, they roomed me with a senior so he could show me what right looks like. He was a pretty tough guy who no one would mess with, so I felt like I was in good hands. It was the winter, and by that time of the school year, I was pretty set in my ways and comfortable. I was invited to a house party that one of the sororities were throwing, so I went with a few friends. When we got there, it was like any other party. People were outside, and some were inside having fun.
Them are fun. Them are
While
fun.
inside, there was music playing, along with people playing video games in one room, and it looked like a board game going on in the other. That was upstairs. After a while, I went upstairs to see why anyone would be playing a board game at a party. When I got to the room, I noticed that it was the most quiet room in the house, which was odd to me. When I walked in the room, there were 4 girls and a guy sitting at a table. I asked what was going on, and they said they were using the Ouija board. I thought it sounded interesting, so I joined. But I never really believed in that type of stuff. While we were messing with the board, they said that there was a girl in the room. But I think that one of the other people that were playing moved it, so I left. That's when unexplainable stuff would happen to me in my dorm. I'd hear laughing in our hallways at odd times of the night.
Oh, that gives me the chills. Oh, fuck
And I
that.
started to have bad dreams. I told my roommate, but he told me it was stress from our upcoming midterms. That went on for about 2 weeks. Then one night everything changed for both of us. I remember it being a Thursday night when this happened. I was asleep in the middle of the night, and all I heard was, "Charlie! Charlie!
The
Charlie, wake up!"
fuck?
I remember making noises and being half asleep, but I acknowledged him. Then he said something that woke me up immediately. "Charlie, what the fuck is that in the corner?" I looked in the corner of the room and I swear there was a silhouette of a girl.
Oh,
I was
Oh
so
my
afraid that
God.
I jumped off the top bunk and I told my roommate to get up
Oh,
and
that
run, but
scared
he
the
was so
shit out of me.
petrified. He was under his covers quivering. Then she spoke.
Why do you seem so scared? All I wanted to do was play with you.
fuck off, cunt.
I told him I'm out.
Get
We
across,
both
get an
ran out of the
exorcism
room.
going.
He was yelling as she's talking.
Burn that bitch.
After that, we were both so shaken that we never went back to that room. We called the police, but when they came, they never found any girl. I don't know if it was because of the house party, Ouija board game, or coincidence, but that was a moment that I'll
Ooh.
never forget. To
Woo!
this day, I still hear odd noises throughout the night wherever I go.
Fucking creepy. Fuck off. Last
When
one,
I was
guys,
7
for
or
now.
8
I'm gonna do
years
some more in a
old,
little bit.
a man moved to my neighborhood. He was around his 60s and introduced himself to me. His name was Tom. He was the only one who spoke English fluently in our neighborhood, but he always tried to speak our native language. He seemed really nice at first. One day after school, my friends and I saw a new cafe in our neighborhood. We were curious and wanted to know how many desserts they had, so we stopped by and looked inside. Then we heard someone say, "Hello, kids." He then said, "Come on in. You can have all the desserts you want for free." Without thinking, we went inside and stayed there for 2 hours. After that, we soon stayed there almost every day after school. Everyone started to like Tom. One day, we went to his cafe like we usually did, but for some reason, I felt kind of uncomfortable. Because at some point, I noticed that there were only kids inside his shop.
Ooh.
Tom came to me and said, "Hey, I saw you yesterday with a cat. Do you like cats?" I said yes,
Oh,
and
hell
he
no.
proceeded to talk to me more. He told me that he has 8 cats in his house and showed me pictures of his cats.
Oh,
All of a
hell no.
sudden,
Fuck you, Tom.
one of his pictures from inside his wallet fell to the floor. I picked it up and I could see a girl's face with blonde curly hair and green eyes. I thought that she was his granddaughter, but what he told me next was a huge shock. He said, "Oh, this is my wife. She lives in London right now." I was confused because the girl in the picture was just a kid, maybe 14 or 15 years
Oh,
old.
hell no.
I thought that he was lying or something. Then I got up. "Oh, I forgot. My mom is waiting for me." So I quickly left the shop and went back home.
Ooh, he getting
Then
mad.
I
You bad
just
bitch.
hugged my mom. The next
Shoot that
day when I
motherfucker.
got to school, there were policemen everywhere. I didn't understand what was going on. Then one police officer walked over to me and he said, "Kid, you have to come with us." They also called my parents, so we went to the police station together. It turned out that Tom's warrant was served. They found lots of data on his computer about the young girls who were raped by him. He even lied about his name. His real name was Hardin. The worst and most horrible thing was when they entered his room. The entire wall was covered with my pictures.
Whoa.
When they said this to my parents, I was terrified.
Oh,
so
hell no.
I fainted. The police arrested him, and he was put in jail for several years.
Good.
Now I'm 18 years old.
Fucking creep.
But I am still afraid. According to my neighbors, he's returning to our neighborhood. I don't want to go out, and I don't even know what to do. If anyone has any advice, please help me and let me know what I should do.
Shoot his ass. Oh, don't do that. Damn. Whew. Alright, guys. That's going to be enough for this one. Like I said, the story will be in the links down below. Hit me up. Subscribe if you guys like it. Alright, Raptor King out. Peace.